We are meant to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird.
Tales of mystery and terror by radio's masters of the macabre.
Stories of the supernatural, the supernormal, dramatized by fantasy, the mystery, the unknown. We tell you this frankly, so if you wish to avoid the excitement and tension of these imaginary plays, we urge you calmly, sincerely, to turn off your radio now.
Welcome back to The Horror. Thanks for joining me this week. We're going to hear from Suspense this time, a series that debuted in 1942, aired until 1962 over CBS stations, produced over 900 original stories. This week's story first aired September 13th, 1945. It's titled The Furnished Floor.
Now, the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California presents Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Miss Mildred Natwick and Mr. Don DeFore as stars of The Furnished Floor, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you a remarkable tale of suspense.
And with The Furnished Floor, a new study written for suspense by Lucille Fletcher, the author of Sorry Wrong Number and other distinguished radio plays, and with the performances of Don DeFore as Mr. Jennings and Mildred Natwick as Mrs. Hawkins, Roma Wines hope indeed to keep you in suspense.
Sit down, rest yourself a minute, Ms. McIntyre, and take a cup of tea. I got some news for you. You'll never guess it in 100 years. Do you remember that Mr. Jennings, you know, my nice tenant that moved away last year? The tall, thin fella, the one with the pretty little wife, Mabel, who died so sudden last October. Oh, sure, you know him. Most devoted husband I ever seen. Always bringing her flowers and billing and cooing. He moved out upstairs about 2 weeks after she died. So heartbroken he was. Sold every stick of furniture, got rid of the canary and the piano, and just skidooed. I expected any day to hear they'd fished him up out of the river, but no. This morning, while I'm cleaning down the stairs, who do you think should ring my bell?
Hello, Mrs. Hawkins. Remember me?
What? It's Mr. Jennings. My, Mr. Jennings, you sure give me a turn. I never expected to see you around this neighborhood again.
Well, here I am. How's the upstairs floor?
Just as you left it, Mr. Jennings. I haven't rented it to a soul.
Well, I want to rent it again.
What? You, Mr. Jennings?
That's right. I'm setting up housekeeping again.
Well, if that don't beat... Getting married again, Mr. Jennings?
In a way. Let's run up and take a look, shall we?
Okay, if you say so. Only, won't it make you feel kind of blue to see the old place again?
Blue? Why should it?
Well, memories, you know.
That's just what I want to find. Memories. Everything just as it was. I hope you've left it just the same, Mrs. Hawkins. No painting or new wallpaper?
Not yet. Thought I'd fix it up to please the new tenant.
Well, leave it just as it was. Please, for me.
Well, here's the keys. Maybe you'd like to go in and look around by yourself.
No. Do come in, Mrs. Hawkins. You were always so very kind. More a friend than a landlady. Oh, how beautiful it looks, even bare. The sunshine always was so warm up here. And the trees. Why, I'd almost forgotten how close the trees were. And there's the marks our sofa made against the wall. And the square shapes of our pictures still on the wallpaper.
Well, it could stand a good cleaning, of course.
Do you remember how Mabel used to sit here of an evening and sing? Now, the upright was over there, and over at the Maxfield Parish. And over near the bay window, above the ferns, the canary sat in his cage. And when she sang Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, he'd always sing with her.
Oh, come now, Mr. Jennings. You'll be getting yourself all fretted up.
Oh, no. I assure you, Mrs. Hawkins, it's very important. You see, I'm going to have it again, just as it was.
Is that so?
I've made a list, but in a year, so many details escape one. Like those ferns, for instance. Well, I'd almost forgotten how she loved ferns. Oh, yes, and there was something over in that corner. What was it? A rocker. Her mother's old rocker. It used to squeak over a loose board whenever anybody sat in it.
You mean you're going to try and find all them things again, Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
But you sold all them to junk dealers. You gave them away. But you scattered them every which way when you broke up your home.
I've already been looking. I've collected a lot of things. It isn't so hard. You see, our furniture wasn't very precious to anyone but us.
Well, of course, you know what you're doing, Mr. Jennings. It's none of my business, I suppose.
Will 2 months' rent be enough in advance, Mrs. Hawkins? I won't be moving in for another couple of weeks, but from time to time, I'd like to have things delivered.
Well, 2 months will be just dandy. I'll make you a special bargain price, too, seeing you don't want no redecorating. You're sure your lady friend won't want none neither, Mr. Jennings?
I hardly think so.
Well, I hope you'll both be very happy here. It's nice to have you back in the neighborhood.
It's good to be home.
Now, Mrs. McIntyre, what would you have done in my place? I admit it gave me a funny feeling, you know. You would think a man had more respect for the dead, and her dead only less than a year, than to bring a new wife plumb back to the same floor and the same furniture. And I say, what kind of a woman is she, too, to stand for that kind of nonsense? But, of course, it ain't really none of my business. Besides, 2 months' rent, 2 months' rent. Well, Mr. Jennings, what are you doing here this time of night?
I'm moving in.
Moving in?
I intended coming much earlier, but I had so many last-minute things to do, like picking up Dickie and...
Oh, now, don't tell me that's your old canary, Mr. Jennings.
Yes, it's little Dickie. I found him in a pet shop on 3rd Avenue, in his old cage. He looks pretty chipper, doesn't he?
Well, aren't you the one? I'd have thought he'd have died of lonesomeness ages ago.
Did all my furniture and things get here, Mrs. Hawkins?
Just about. They've been delivering off and on for the last week. You sure got everything back, Mr. Jennings?
Well, pretty nearly everything. A couple of rugs are missing, and our old kitchen table, and... Oh, say, I got the piano. I bought the old upright back from the Sunday school. Boy, I've been more than lucky. Miss Hawkins, you won't mind, will you, if I start moving some of it into place tonight? I'll be very quiet.
Tonight? Well, it's pretty near midnight, Mr. Jennings.
Yes, I know, but I'd have to work all day tomorrow and the next day. You see, there's so little time.
Oh, you're expecting her soon?
Very soon.
Oh, well, if you don't get it done in time, I'll be glad to give you and her a hand when she gets here.
Oh, no. It's got to be all ready before she comes. Otherwise, she won't come.
You don't say, Mr. Jennings.
So, if you don't mind, it'll only be for a few nights. And I won't move any of the heavy pieces after midnight. If you only knew what this means to me, Mrs. Hawkins. How I've waited for months.
Is that so, Mr. Jennings? Well, I'm sure glad you found somebody to make a home for you again, and I hope she's the right girl for you and is going to make you happy.
Oh, she will, all right.
Of course, there are some people I know say a man ought to wait a couple of years, but, well, I was only saying yesterday, certain men are natural-born husbands, and homebodies, they need a home and a woman to look after them.
Yes, that's true. Well, good night, Mrs. Hawkins. I'll try not to disturb you.
Good night, Mr. Jennings. Come in, Mrs. McIntyre. No, it's okay. He's at the office. He'll never know we come up. Yeah. Take a look around. Ain't it something? Everything fixed up down to the last knife and fork just exactly as she had it. Don't it give you the creeps? Yep, that's the same canary singing in his cage, just like it used to. And look, Mrs. McIntyre, come here in the bedroom. He's even got her clothes hung up in the closet. Now, I'm asking you, Mrs. McIntyre, what do you think the second Mrs. Jennings is going to say to that? Mr. Jennings?
Oh, hello, Mrs. Hawkins.
Well, I've been beside myself with worry, Mr. Jennings. Where you been all this time, if I may ask?
Right here.
Right here?
What, didn't you hear us come in? I've been to work all day, of course, but last night, a little after 1. Oh, perhaps you were sleeping.
Us? You mean you and...
Well, yes. She's come.
You mean she's been upstairs all day?
Certainly.
I haven't heard a sound.
Probably she's sleeping. She was very tired. The trip was more exhausting than I dreamed.
Well, you might have stopped by and told me on your way to work this morning, Mr. Jennings. Of course, it's none of my business, but I could have at least introduced myself to my own tenant and maybe even helped her out.
Oh, it's all right. She doesn't want to see anybody just yet.
Oh, no? Well, of course, I wouldn't intrude on your privacy for anything, Mr. Jennings, although I'm sure when the first Mrs. Jennings was alive, we were all friends here.
Oh, no, it isn't that. It's only that in these first few days, everything is so new and strange. She's not quite herself.
Okay, Mr. Jennings. You know best. But if you should want me, you just call down the dumb waiter, and I'll be right up.
Thanks, Mrs. Hawkins. Thank you. But on no account are we to be disturbed. On no account.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as stars Mildred Natwick and Don DeFore in The Furnished Floor by Lucille Fletcher. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Happier days are here again. People are entertaining more and more, inviting friends over often, enjoying friendly visits in simple, sensible ways. One such way is to serve Roma, California sherry. In the words of famed hostess Elsa Maxwell, I serve my guests Roma sherry. There is nothing so friendly, so heartwarming, as delicious, glorious, golden amber Roma sherry, rich in nutty, mellow taste goodness. Serve cool. When I invite friends in, I always serve Roma sherry as first call for dinner. And Miss Maxwell might have added, Roma sherry is most enjoyable later in the evening, too. In fact, anytime. Roma sherry, like all the famous Roma wines, reflects the heritage of carefully selected grapes, freshly gathered at flavor fullness from California's choicest vineyards, quickly but gently pressed. Then by a process as slow as time, brought to liquid perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skill, and bottled at Roma's famed wineries. Enjoy Roma wines regularly. They are always unvaryingly good. Remember, because of uniformly fine quality at reasonable cost, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine. R-O-M-A. Roma Wines.
And now Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Don DeFore and Mildred Natwick in The Furnished Floor, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Now, don't get me wrong, Mrs. McIntyre. The last thing in the world I am is a busybody, but, well, I don't go out much on account of my heart, and our 2 floors are kind of close. Downstairs in my dining room, you can hear most everything that goes on upstairs. Now, wouldn't you have thought there'd have been something last night? Some talking or footsteps or dishes rattling? Well, I'm telling you, I sat there till midnight, and there wasn't a thing. Nothing at all, except along about 12:30, I hear the dumb waiter come rumbling down the shaft. Well, I just stole a peek, and there, going by with his claws sticking up in the air, was that little yellow canary, dead.
Good morning, Mrs. Hawkins.
Good morning. And how's Mrs. Jennings today?
Wonderful.
Feeling a bit better now?
Oh, yes. Of course, she's still very weak, but every day I'm sure will make her stronger. I have high hopes for her recovery.
You had a doctor in to see her yet? Dr. Rubenstein, my doctor, is very good.
No. I'm afraid a doctor wouldn't help her. No.
Mrs. Jennings! Mrs. Jennings! It's Mrs. Hawkins. The lady downstairs. I heard you were sick, and so I got a little bit of lunch for you, Mrs. Jennings. It's just a little bowl of homemade chicken broth, but it's nice and rich. You sleeping, Mrs. Jennings? Okay, then I'll just slip in quietly with my own keys, if you don't mind, and leave it right beside your bed. Oh, that's funny. Oh, he must have bought a new kind of lock. He didn't say anything to me. Mrs. Jennings! Mrs. Jennings! Mr. Jennings?
Oh, good evening, Mrs. Hawkins.
You got a minute, Mr. Jennings. I'd like to speak to you, if you don't mind.
Well, Mrs. Jennings is waiting for me upstairs.
It's about Mrs. Jennings. She's still poorly, you say?
Well, she is confined a good deal to her bed.
Well, why don't you get someone in to look after her? I know a good woman, Mrs. McIntyre, goes out nursing by the day.
No, oh, no.
Well, I don't like it, Mr. Jennings, locking her up like that every morning so not a soul can get in. Suppose something happened.
What could happen?
What could happen? Anything could happen. A fire.
Oh, that doesn't worry me.
Or she could get worse and maybe even die.
Oh, no.
Everybody's got to go sometime, Mr. Jennings. I wouldn't take no chances.
Yes, I know. But not her.
Not her? Whatever do you mean, Mr. Jennings?
Because she's immune.
Immune? Against... She ain't got no contagious disease up there, has she?
Oh, no. It's nothing like that. Oh, Mrs. Hawkins, please don't worry or be uneasy. It's worked out so beautifully. It's nothing that can do you any harm. And we're so happy. So wonderfully happy.
Oh, Mr. Jennings, I'll be up in about 1 hour with the plumber.
The plumber?
I'm sorry to disturb you at supper time, but there's something gone wrong with the pipes, and we think it's upstairs in your floor.
You can't come in. Mrs. Jennings will be sleeping.
Plumber says it's the only time he can come. Unless he comes tomorrow afternoon while you're at the office. You want to leave me your key, Mr. Jennings?
No, I can't.
Well, he'll have to get in there sooner or later, Mr. Jennings. The water downstairs all black and discolored.
It's out of the question tonight. I'll discuss it with you in the morning.
Okay, Mr. Jennings. Well, now, Mrs. McIntyre, how would you feel? Your own house going to rack and ruin. You can't even do nothing about it. I ask you, what kind of a thing's he got up there that nobody can see? I tell you, just sitting here in this silent house night after night gives me the creeps. And with my heart what 'tis, Well, anyway, his 2 months' rent's up tomorrow, and I got my mind made up.
Oh, good evening, Mrs. Hawkins. Well, I didn't know you for a minute standing there in the dark.
Well, I didn't want to miss you this time, Mr. Jennings.
No?
I got your money this morning for next month stuck under the door.
Oh, yes. I had to leave early. I hope it was all right.
No, it wasn't all right. I'm sorry, but the floor's been rented, Mr. Jennings.
Rented?
To a young serviceman and his wife from the 4th. They took it sight unseen this morning.
Oh, but you can't.
They're living in a crowded room on 81st Street. It's very crowded. I told them I figured you could probably get most of your stuff out in a week.
A week? I never told you I was going, Mrs. Hawkins.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jennings.
If it's a matter of a little more rent, I'll be glad to pay and sign a lease, any kind of a lease you want.
It's not a matter of rent or a lease, Mr. Jennings. It's just I want my floor back, that's all.
But, Mrs. Hawkins,
I like neighborly people upstairs, Mr. Jennings. I'm home a lot. I like people I can trust. I don't want no mysteries in my house. New locks on the door so no one can get in, and sneakings in and out at night.
Oh, Mrs. Hawkins, I swear to you it's all right. Perfectly all right.
All this business about Mrs. Jennings, never a face at the window, never a footstep on the floor, or a dish rag hung out on the line.
Mrs. Jennings is ill. She's not like other people. Oh, I tell you I won't go. You've got to let me stay.
Here's your rent back, Mr. Jennings.
I haven't any place to go. This is my home. It's all I have. I staked out of everything on being here. Everything.
There are other floors vacant in this neighborhood.
No. It's got to be this one, this particular floor. Mrs. Hawkins, if I could buy the house, the whole house.
Buy the house?
Yes, if it's for sale. Perhaps you've never thought of selling it, but I'd give you a good price. I'd scrape the money together somehow.
This house ain't for sale. It happens to be my home, too, Mr. Jennings.
Oh, I know, but you're all alone now that Mr. Hawkins is... it's a heavy responsibility. A big house and all those stairs to keep clean and the repairs and all. Oh, Mrs. Hawkins, if you'd only reconsider, I'd do anything.
No, it's too much for me. I don't understand it. Why can't she see me and talk to me? Why can't she invite me in for a cup of tea and explain?
Because she can't.
What's the matter with her that she can't? Is she so ugly or so beautiful or so crazy? Who is she, anyway?
I can't tell you.
Okay, Mr. Jennings. Then that's that.
Mrs. Hawkins! Mrs. Hawkins!
Yes? I'm here, Mr. Jennings, at the dumbwaiter.
Mrs. Hawkins!
Yes, Mr. Jennings. What is it?
I'm sending you down the key on the dumbwaiter. She wants you to come up.
She?
Mrs. Jennings. Okay? Got it?
Yes. She wants me to come up now, Mr. Jennings?
That's right.
Well, it's kind of late. If she ain't so well.
That's all right. She's feeling much better tonight. She wants to talk to you about the floor before it's too late.
Okay. I'll be right up. Okay, Mr. Jennings. I'm here.
Come in. You have the key.
Okay. Oh. Where's your lights, Mr. Jennings? I can't see a thing.
I'll light a candle in a moment. Mrs. Jennings prefers the dark. But you know this floor so well, Mrs. Hawkins. Come in.
Oh, where are you, Mr. Jennings?
Right in here, in the parlor. Sitting on the sofa.
Oh.
That's just the wind. There's always a little draft blowing in here. But won't you sit down, Mrs. Hawkins?
No, thanks. I'm only going to stay a minute, just long enough to meet Mrs. Jennings.
Oh, but you've already met her.
Already met her?
Don't you remember? 5 years ago. A rather chilly day. The rain was falling. She rang the bell to ask about the upstairs floor. And you invited her in for a cup of tea.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. That was the first Mrs. Jennings.
That's what I mean.
Oh. Oh, no, Mr. Jennings.
Now do you understand, Mrs. Hawkins? Now do you know why we couldn't ever go away?
We? But there couldn't... Well, the first Mrs. Jennings, it's...
I know. You saw her coffin in this very room, didn't you, Mrs. Hawkins? You saw them take her away. I think you even followed out to that cold, dark cemetery.
Well, but...
But she couldn't stay away. She pleaded with me in my dreams to bring her back, and I brought her back.
Oh, no, Mr. Jennings. Don't say such things.
If everything were the same as in the past, she said, we could have the past. If I furnished our old floor with the same things, she'd live here, too.
Excuse me, Mr. Jennings. I'm afraid I got
No, don't go yet. There's nothing frightening about it. Would you be afraid to look at a forsythia bush that had been asleep all winter? Or a tulip? Or a tree?
I ain't afraid, Mr. Jennings. I only...
Listen.
What?
You don't hear it? In the bedroom? The rocking?
No.
Mabel. Mabel.
No. Don't call her. I hear it, Mr. Jennings.
Oh, but she wants to meet you. She's always loved you so much.
I just as soon... Some other time, Mr. Jennings. The door's locked.
It snapped shut behind you. Really, Mrs. Hawkins, don't go. She'll be in a moment. There. She's coming down the hall.
Now, let me out of this. Do you hear? Let me out. My heart won't stand it.
Oh, there she is.
Where?
Standing in the doorway, smiling. Oh, my darling. My darling.
I don't see nobody.
Mrs. Hawkins, she's going to sing for you.
Sing for me?
This is the first night she's been able to. You remember the old song she used to sing of an evening? Swing low, sweet child?
I don't want to hear it.
Oh, please, Mrs. Hawkins. She's very timid. You'll frighten her.
The dead can't come back. They'd never want to live on this earth again. And...
Go on, Mabel, dearest. Don't mind. You're looking very beautiful tonight, my darling. I like that dress. Do you remember when we bought it? On our first wedding anniversary.
Why don't they all come back then? Why couldn't my poor old John...
Sit down, dearest. There. Now it seems like old times again. The flower in your hair, the canary singing in his cage.
No, it can't. Oh, I told you. My heart. Oh, get a doctor, quick.
Your voice was always like a bird's to me. I'll never forget the first time I ever heard it. On an evening in spring at the Calvary Baptist Church.
Doctor.
Play, dearest, play. Go on, dearest. It's all right. Sing. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Roma Wines have brought you Mildred Natwick and Don DeFore as stars of The Furnished Floor, tonight's study in Suspense.
This is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines, the sponsor of Suspense. And here's a hint on how to make better cocktails. Make them with zestful, full-flavored Roma vermouth. The vermouth of almost 100 rare herbs, made and bottled in the heart of California's famous vineyards, yet surprisingly low-priced. Try Roma vermouth soon, won't you?
Mildred Natwick will soon be seen in the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer production Yolanda and the Thief. Don DeFore is currently being seen in the Hal Wallace production You Came Along, a Paramount picture. Next Thursday, you will hear Miss Myrna Loy, a star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Horror. Today's episode, The Furnished Floor, was written by Lucille Fletcher. If you want to hear more of her work, donate $20 and you'll get a set of old-time radio episodes that Lucille Fletcher wrote. You can find out more about that at donate.relicradio.com or click on the donate link on the website. You can get those sets as thank you gifts alongside others. All the information is on the website, and while you're on the website, you can find thousands of other old-time radio episodes. Thanks to those who have helped out. Thanks for joining me today. Be back next Saturday with a story from Nightmare and another episode of The Horror.
Strange Tales.
RelicRadio.com presents tales of the strange and bizarre, the weird and the wicked. Stories not necessarily of the supernatural, but of the unnatural. Join us now for Strange Tales, featuring radio drama at its most mysterious and unusual. This is Strange Tales. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me this Sunday. Before we get to today's show, a quick reminder, if you'd like to help support Strange Tales, all the Relic Radio shows, help keep them coming for another year, visit donate.relicradio.com or click on the donate link on the website. Your support is how all of this is made possible. Today, we're going to hear from the Mysterious Traveler in their episode from January 5th, 1947, titled New Year's Nightmare.
Mutual presents The Mysterious Traveler.
This is The Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and the terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip, that it will thrill you a little and chill you a little. So settle back and get a good grip on your nerves, if you can. Where are we going? Well, let us say for the moment we're taking a little trip into time in a story I call New Year's Nightmare. As the old year entered its last minute, the crowds at the Club Tropicana were waiting expectantly for the clock to strike midnight. At a ringside table, a lovely young woman angrily whispers to the man with her.
Chris, if you take another drink, I'll leave.
Oh, Judy, this is New Year's Eve. It'll be 1947 in another minute. Gotta celebrate, don't I? Just one more.
Just one more, just one more. That's what you always say. I wouldn't mind if it were just tonight, but you're always getting drunk.
Waiter, another bottle of champagne.
Nothing I say means anything to you, does it? You think because I've forgiven you a dozen times in the past, I'll do it again. But you're wrong, Chris.
Happy New Year, darling. 1947 is going to be our year.
No, Chris, it isn't. I won't marry a man who gets drunk in New York and wakes up the next day in another city.
Oh, Judy, what are you saying? You don't mean that. You know I love you.
Yes, Chris, you love me. But not enough to give up drinking. I'll miss you, Chris. Miss you terribly. But I know I'm doing the right thing.
Judy, don't talk like that. I couldn't live without you. You know that. Won't you?
I'm sorry, Chris. Here's your ring. Will you please take me home?
You don't have to leave. If the sight of my drinking is too much for you, I'll go someplace else and do it. Martin will take you home. Happy New Year and goodbye.
Do you mind finishing that drink, mister? It's 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm dead on my feet.
Sure, I'll drink up. No matter what she says.
That's right. Now you better go home and sleep it off. Good night and a happy 1947 to you.
Thanks. And the same to you. Gotta find another bar. New Year's. Gotta celebrate. Another bar across the street. Oh, gotta celebrate.
Hey, mister, look out for that car. You're gonna get run down if you don't. Look out!
Oh, my head. Oh, it feels so funny. What's that noise? Those horns.
Why, darling, it's midnight. New Year's.
Oh, my head, it's throbbing so. Where am I? How did I get here?
Why, darling, you live here.
Live here? What are you talking about?
Charles, I'd better call Dr. Smith. You look so strange. Hello? Connect me with Dr. Smith's apartment, please.
Never seen this place before.
Hello, Doctor? This is Blanche Arnold. Yes, it's Charles. He isn't well. Could you come to our apartment at once? Oh, thank you. Goodbye.
What do you mean, I live here? Who are you? Where am I?
I'm your wife, Charles. This is our home, don't you remember?
You're my wife. Well, you can't be. I'm not married. What am I doing here? What's your game?
Charles, can't you remember anything about us?
What are you talking about? I never saw you before. And why do you keep calling me Charles? My name is Chris. Chris Andrews.
Chris Andrews. So that's what the initials CA stood for.
Oh, that noise out there. What are they making such a racket for?
Because it's midnight, New Year's Eve.
Midnight? New Year's Eve? But it was midnight hours ago when I left the Club Tropicana. What are you talking about?
Oh, that must be Dr. Smith. I'll answer it.
Dr. Smith? I don't know any Dr. Smith.
Oh, come in, Doctor. I'm so glad you're here. I think it's the amnesia. It seems to have left him all of a sudden. Charles? It's Dr. Smith.
I don't know him, and I don't know you. And please stop calling me Charles. I told you my name is Chris Andrews.
Mm-hmm. Won't you sit down, Mr. Andrews? I'd like to talk with you for a few minutes.
What about?
Tell me, Mr. Andrews, what's the last thing you remember before finding yourself in this apartment?
Why, Judy. She and I were at the Club Tropicana, celebrating New Year's Eve.
I see.
I remember we quarreled about my drinking. I walked out on her and had a few drinks someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can recall. Oh, my head. I've had hangovers, but I've never felt like this before. What time is it?
It's just 4 minutes after 12.
But it can't be 4 minutes after 12 New Year's Eve. That was hours ago when I left the Tropicana.
Mr. Andrews, that was New Year's Eve, 1947.
What do you mean, that was New Year's Eve, 1947?
This is New Year's Eve, 1948.
1948? What are you talking about? It's 1947.
Well, here's the morning paper. You can see the date for yourself.
Thursday, January 1st, 1948. No, it can't be. It can't be. A year gone? Just like that? Well, where did it go? I haven't lived it yet.
Perhaps you'd better let me clear up a few things for you.
1948.
My name is Smith. I was a resident physician until recently at the Park Hospital. While I was on duty, last New Year's Day, 1947, you were brought into the hospital seriously injured, having been run over by a car. When you recovered consciousness 5 days later, you didn't know who you were. You were a victim of amnesia.
Amnesia?
Yes, and we didn't know who you were as you had no identification papers.
But my wallet, letters...
They were gone. The only clue to your identity was a belt buckle with the initials CA on it.
We didn't know your real name, so I called you Charles, for the C.
Blanche was your nurse.
I've always liked the name Charles. And as for your last name, we thought Arnold was as good as any, so you became Charles Arnold.
But what have I been doing since the day I recovered consciousness?
Well, you weren't discharged from the hospital until May. Then you went to work as an insurance clerk.
As an insurance clerk? But I don't know anything about being a clerk. I'm a reporter.
Well, there was no way of learning what your occupation had been. So when Blanche learned of this opening in an insurance office, you applied for the position.
And that's where I've been working? Up to now?
Yes.
And then after you got your job, we were married.
Married?
Charles. Chris. Don't you remember?
I'm afraid, Blanche, you really can't.
Married. But Judy... Oh, it's like a dream. My head keeps throbbing. I keep expecting to wake up. There's that date in the paper. January 1st, 1948.
Doctor, you said he might never get over his amnesia.
Well, that was a strong possibility, but apparently the sounds of New Year's brought back his memory.
You're going just like that. Judy, my friends, job, all gone. Doctor, where am I? What's the address of this apartment house?
You're at 5718 North 13th Street, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia? But how did I get to Philadelphia?
That we don't know. All that I can tell you is that your accident occurred just a few blocks from here.
Darling, I know what a shock it must be.
Strange. You must have called me darling many times in the past. And yet this is the first time I've ever heard you call me that.
Yes, I know.
What did you say your name was?
Oh, hello, Doctor. Come in, won't you?
Thank you. How are you, Blanche?
All right, I suppose.
How's Chris getting along?
He's fine. It's just...
Why, Blanche, what's this? I've never seen you cry. Here.
No, it's just that everything's so changed. Those 6 months Chris and I were married before he regained his memory were the happiest of my life.
And now?
This past month since he got his memory back, it's been as though I were married to a stranger. It isn't as though he doesn't try to be nice to me, but it's also obvious he doesn't love me.
Now, Blanche, you mustn't say that.
It's true, I tell you. How can a man love a woman those first 6 months as he loved me and then fall out of love with her when he's regained his memory?
Well, you must have patience, Blanche. It will take time for Chris to adjust himself to what's happened. He fell in love with you as Charles Arnold, and I'm sure he will as Chris Andrews. You just must give him time.
Judy. Oh, Judy. Oh, just let me look at you. Oh, this can't be true. You're being here.
Well, it is. It's been a long time.
Yes. Year and a month since New Year's Eve, 1947.
Chris, what are you doing here in Philadelphia?
I live here.
Well, so do I. I got a job with Ryan and Company as a copywriter here a few months ago.
Look, Judy, we can't talk here on the sidewalk.
That's right. Well, look, I live only a few blocks from here. We can go to my apartment.
Oh, that's fine. There's so much I want to ask, and there's so much to tell.
Here, let me have your hat and coat.
Thank you.
Would you like something to drink?
No, I don't drink anymore.
Oh? Chris, you have changed. You look so much older.
Well, you don't. You're as lovely as that night I saw you last.
Thank you, Chris.
Judy, you'll have to let me explain what happened after I left you that night at the Tropicana. If you find it difficult to believe, I won't blame you. It still seems like a nightmare to me. That night, after I left you... And so now you know everything. From the moment I last saw you to this one.
Oh, no wonder you look different after having gone through an experience like that. Well, you're all right now. You know who you are. You're happily married. You have a job.
I'm not happily married, Judy.
Chris, you mustn't talk like that. Surely you must have loved your wife if you married her, and she hasn't changed.
Judy, there's never been anyone for me but you. You know that. And you still feel that way about me.
No, I don't.
When we met tonight, that old look was still in your eyes. You do care. You know you do.
Please, Chris, no matter how I feel about you, it's over now. You're married, and that's all there is to it. I wish you'd go, and I don't want to see you again.
Chris, where have you been? I expected you home from work hours ago.
I met a friend.
Oh, you look so tired. Do you feel well?
Blanche, this past month I tried my best to be a good husband, haven't I?
Well, you have been, darling.
No, there's something missing, and you know it. Oh, it isn't your fault. It's mine. And as a result, we're both unhappy.
You mustn't say that, Chris. I feel that in time, things will be as they were when we were first married. When you were Charles Arnold.
No, but they won't be, Blanche. It's no use, I tell you.
Chris, who is the friend you met tonight?
The girl I was once engaged to.
I see.
Blanche, you've got to give me a divorce.
No, Chris. I'll never do that.
But why? You know I don't love you. What's the sense in going on like this?
Chris, when you were Charles Arnold, you did love me, and we were happy together. I had your love once, and I mean to win it back. I won't give you a divorce.
Judy.
Chris, I asked you not to call on me again.
Judy, I've got to talk to you. May I come in?
Well, all right. But just for a few minutes.
Thank you. Judy, even if we hadn't met again a week ago, things wouldn't have been any different between my wife and myself. I'll never love her. And I'm not going on with her.
What do you mean, Chris?
I'm going to leave her, Judy, and start all over, someplace far away. I just came around to say goodbye.
Are you set on leaving her?
Yes. Nothing can change my mind about that.
Now, you've got to understand my position, Chris. I could never be happy with you if I thought I'd been the one who came between you and your wife. But if you are going to leave her, I would like to see you again when you're free.
Would you, Judy?
Yes. But I don't want to see you until she's given you a divorce.
A divorce? Judy, I am going to be free. Nothing's going to prevent it. Nothing. Blanche, how would you like to go out tonight?
Go out?
Yeah, we might take in a show or go dancing. Didn't I ever take you out when I was Charles Arnold?
Oh, why, yes. We used to have wonderful evenings together then.
Well, why not now? Unless you don't want to.
Oh, Chris, there's nothing in the world I'd rather do.
Hey, why the tears?
Oh, it's just that I'm so happy.
Oh, come here. Did this Mr. Arnold ever put his arms around you like this?
Oh, yes, often. Oh, Chris, stop squeezing me so tight. Chris!
Sorry, darling.
Oh, you almost squeezed me to death.
That's so you'll remember that I'm your husband and not Mr. Arnold. And Blanche.
Oh, yes, Chris.
I'm taking a week's vacation soon. What do you say if we go up to the Adirondack Mountains for a week of winter sport?
Oh, Chris, I'd love to. Wait, it'll be like a second honeymoon.
Blanche, you all right? There's only a few more feet to the top.
I'm coming, darling. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Oh, Chris. Oh, the view is wonderful from here, isn't it?
You're right. Being up here is like being alone in the world.
Yes, just the two of us. Oh, this past week's been a wonderful one, Chris. I've never been so happy.
Nor have I.
Oh, be careful, Chris. Don't go so near the edge. That canyon's 4,000 feet deep.
Oh, this ledge is perfectly safe. Come over here and take a look at the valley below.
All right. Ooh, please keep your arms around me, Chris. Looking down like this frightens me.
There. You're safe in my arms.
Chris, why are you looking at me that way?
What way, dear?
I don't know. Is your head throbbing again?
No, dear. I don't suppose you've changed your mind about giving me a divorce, have you?
Giving you a divorce? But I thought we were so happy together.
Yes, that's the impression I meant people to get.
Chris, you can't be serious. Why, everything's been wonderful these past few weeks.
Oh, I see it won't be any use trying to talk you into it.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry, Blanche. I don't want to do this, but you've given me no alternative. It's really your own fault, that you must die.
Let go of me, Chris.
No use struggling, darling. No one can see or hear you, and you can't possibly escape.
You can't throw me off that ledge, then I'll hang you.
I don't think so, dear. We've been so happy these past few weeks. I'm sure the police will see it as an unfortunate accident.
Stop pushing me toward the edge. Chris, don't. I'll give you a divorce. I'll give you anything.
I'm afraid it's too late for that. Good evening, Judy. May I come in?
Why, yes, of course. How are you, Chris?
Oh, I'm all right. I want to thank you for the note you sent me when Blanche died.
I can't tell you how sorry I was to hear about it, Chris.
Yes, it all happened so quickly.
What have you been doing since then?
Oh, just working. Trying to straighten myself out.
Yes.
Judy, perhaps I shouldn't talk about it now, seeing that Blanche has only been gone a month, but I've been thinking of leaving town. Will you come with me?
Please sit down, Chris. You make me nervous walking back and forth like that.
All right. But you haven't answered my question.
Well, it isn't easy to answer.
It would be if you said yes. I see in your eyes you mean no. Why?
Chris, I've met someone else recently.
Someone else? But you said if I were free, you'd marry me.
I didn't say I'd marry you. I said if you were free, I'd like to see you again. But now I'm not even sure of that. You're so different from what you used to be.
Stop being clever. If you didn't say you'd marry me, you implied as much.
Please, Chris, you're making it so difficult for me.
I'm making it difficult for you. And I suppose what I've been through doesn't count. I risked my life to get you.
Risked your life? Chris, what are you saying?
Are you such a fool as to believe that Blanche fell off that mountain?
Chris, you didn't.
Yes. And I did because you said you'd marry me if I were free.
Oh, no, I meant a divorce.
But she wouldn't give me a divorce. It was the only way I could gain my freedom. And now you tell me there's someone else.
Oh, Chris.
I did it for you. And you're going to marry me.
No, I won't.
If I can't have you, no one else will.
Chris, what's the matter with you? Chris!
We were meant for each other, darling. In life and in death.
Chris, if you come any closer, I'll scream for help. No, don't. Chris, no!
You won't marry me. You'll never marry anyone else. There. He'll never have you.
Open up in there.
Miss Winters, are you all right? Call the police.
Oh, I didn't want to do it, darling. But you forced me to. Oh, my head. It throbs so. Everything's like a nightmare.
Open up in there. This is the police.
The police? I've got to get away. Oh, they're closing in on me. There's no escape from this roof.
Let's work our ways out from this end of the roof to the other.
They'll never take me alive. Never. I've got 5 bullets. 4 for them and the last for myself.
Take it easy now, Joe. You may be hiding behind one of those chimneys.
Oh, my head. It keeps throbbing so. If I could only think. Oh, this can't be real. It's like a horrible dream. They're coming for me.
Wait. There's someone behind that chimney over there. Get under cover.
They'll never take me alive. Never. I'll show them.
Keep down, Mike.
Why don't you come and get me? If I shoot it out with me, huh? I'll show you.
Come on, Mike. His gun is empty.
Oh, empty. You'll never take me alive. Never.
He's climbing up on the ledge. It's 15 stories down.
I'm coming, Judy. I'm coming.
He's going to jump.
I'm falling. Falling. You'll never take me. Never. I'm falling. Falling.
Doctor, the patient's recovering consciousness.
Yes, you're right. He's opening his eyes.
Oh, my head. It throbs so. Where am I? Oh, it was a dream. Not real. Oh, thank heaven.
Now, you must be quiet. You've been in a serious accident.
Accident?
Yes. You were hit by an automobile New Year's morning. Would you mind telling me your name? There weren't any identification papers in your clothing, and we'd like to inform your relatives of what's happened.
My name? It's... I can't remember my name.
I see. Well, what about your address? Can you remember that?
No. No, I can't remember anything.
Now, you mustn't get excited. It'll all come back to you. You received a fractured skull from the accident.
There was a mountain.
Mountain? You mean you live near one?
I don't know. There was a mountain. and the police were chasing me. And I jumped off a high building. It's all mixed up.
You probably dreamed that while you were unconscious. But you're all right now. Just need rest and quiet.
Where am I?
You're in the Park Hospital, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia? What day is it?
It's January 5th, 1947. It's 7:26 in the evening.
And you don't know my name?
No, all we have is your belt buckle with the initials CA.
CA?
Nurse, will you look after the patient now? I'll be in to see him later tonight.
Yes, Doctor. Are you comfortable?
The initials CA. What do you suppose they stand for?
Perhaps the C is for Charles?
Charles? Charles. I don't know.
Well, suppose I call you Charles, just for the time being. I always liked the name Charles.
All right. What's your name?
I'm Miss Thompson, but you can call me Blanche. And Charles, let me be the first to wish you a happy 1947.
This is the mysterious traveler again. Have you enjoyed our little trip? Oh, by the way, I want to wish you all a very happy New Year. And I do hope you'll be careful about making new acquaintances. And perhaps you'd better keep an eye on the old ones, too. For after all, who can foretell the future? Not even Chris Andrews, or should I say Charles Arnold, knows what's in store for him. But we do, don't we? And speaking of the future, Oh, you're getting off here. I'm sorry. But I'm sure we'll meet again. I take this same train every week at this same time.
You've just heard The Mysterious Traveler, a series of dramas of the strange and terrifying. In tonight's cast were Maurice Tarplin, Stuart Brody, Louise Fitch, Hester Sondergaard, and Mort Lawrence. Original music was played by Doc Whipple. The Mysterious Traveler is written and directed by Bob Arthur and David Cogan. Listen next week over most of these stations to a tale titled
No Grave Can Hold Me.
Another Tale of the Mysterious Traveler. The Mysterious Traveler has been presented from our New York studios. Carl Caruso speaking. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
The Mysterious Traveler debuted in December of 1943 and aired until September of 1952 over Mutual stations, produced 370 episodes. If you want to hear more from it, just visit the website, relicradio.com. Search out The Mysterious Traveler. You'll find more from them. Past episodes of Strange Tales and thousands of other old-time radio episodes. All available for free thanks to your support. Thanks for joining me today. Be back next Sunday with another episode of Relic Radio's Strange Tales.